It's actually considered to be pretty unusual. Normally, this is done at a leader-to-leader level, but instead we're seeing President Trump today saying that he will be there in person alongside his Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent. The administration is making it clear that President Trump says that he wants to be directly involved in these negotiations. And when we're talking about Japan, part of why we know or our understanding is that Japan will get priority in these talks is because Japan's Prime Minister did reach out directly to President Trump just last week, and that has helped sort of spur this relationship when it comes to the U.S. liking that and wanting to then engage with Japan. President Trump says that they're going to be talking about trade imbalances, but also what he characterized as military spending. That's something that perhaps could be one of those non-tariff barriers that this White House tells us so much about will ultimately need to be involved in these talks. And it's interesting to look at who this administration really is prioritizing beyond who has reached out directly to the U.S., but it's also those countries that are geographically close to China, like South Korea, India, Vietnam, all of these places that this White House is really trying to court as the trade negotiations remain stalled with Beijing.
Hey, Tyler, we've really seen Trump remaining fervent in this tariff campaign. What are you hearing on the ground? Are people expecting him at all to back down or to pull back? I mean, we've obviously seen him give some reprieve for certain countries, but how are you thinking about this going into the Japan talks?
Well, broadly speaking, this administration is holding firm when it comes to their tariff plan, although we do have, of course, this 90-day pause with the so-called reciprocal tariff plan. But look at just the sector-specific tariffs. Really, this White House remaining undaunted when it comes to those. Just yesterday, adding another Section 232 investigation when it comes to critical minerals, just one day after launching, or at least formally telling us that they had launched their probes into pharmaceuticals as well as semiconductors. Now, this administration always touts that so far at least 75 countries around there have reached out to this White House for negotiations. The White House press secretary yesterday narrowed that number a little further, saying that there are about 15 countries that have put further concrete offers on the table that President Trump is considering. But really, we know that at least at this part, this White House really does remain undaunted. It doesn't take the market movements or any of the economic concerns, because they are really pushing us towards that this is all about that long-term economic growth.
China has not been quiet, Tyler. China says it is open to talks if the U.S. shows respect and names a point person other than the president, I presume. How is that news landing at the White House?
Yeah, this is really kind of our first insight into potentially what could help bring down escalation, start these talks after they really have been stalled. And a person familiar with the Chinese government's thinking, as you said there, saying that the most important precondition is for Chinese officials to feel like they are going to get respect when it comes to these calls. It appears that they are wanting President Trump to disavow comments from his cabinet members when they are critical of China, wanting him to, sort of take extra steps, even if he himself touts that he has a really good personal relationship with Xi Jinping. But perhaps that pivotal part is what you said, which is that Beijing does want the U.S. to appoint a point person that can speak and act on behalf of President Trump, even as the White House says that President Trump himself will be heavily involved in these negotiations. You heard Caroline Leavitt yesterday saying the ball is now in China's court, and this is sort of the reaction that we're getting, that Beijing really does want to see this happen, perhaps at those lower level first. And we have to keep in mind that there really were trade talks earlier this year, back in February when China was hit with that 20% baseline tariff. But at that point, the discussion was about fentanyl concerns, and it appeared that those trade talks have broken down. And at this point, the gap has only really gotten bigger.